Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Navigating the AI Frontier. I'm your host, Christy Blyzeffer with Poets and Quants, and today we're talking with faculty and academic directors from top programs about how AI will transform both MBA education and careers. Please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit any questions, and I'll do my best to get to those as we move along. Let's begin by getting to know a little bit about our panelists. Please to take a moment, each of you, to introduce yourself, your school, and your role. And we'll start with you, Jose.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christy. My name is Jose, and I am a professor of digital strategy at IMD Business School in beautiful Lausanne, at the heart of Switzerland in Europe.
Thank you. And Vincent, how about you?
Hi, Christy. My name is Vincent Nijs. I'm at the Rady School of Management. I'm the faculty director of our Master of Science in Business Analytics program. And Rady is in beautiful San Diego.
Great, thank you. And Balaji.
Hey everyone, my name is Balaji Padmanabhan. I'm a professor of information systems in the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. Looking forward to discussing a lot of things I'm very passionate about today.
Great, thank you. Mohammed?
Hi, everybody. This is Mohammed Rahman. I'm in the Daniel School of Business at Purdue University. I'm also the academic director of our newly launched program, Master of Business and Technology, and also the Daniel School Chair in Management.
Very good, thank you. And Angela.
Thanks, Christy. I'm Angela Virtu. I'm a professorial lecturer in the Information Technology and Analytics Department at American University's Kogod School of Business.
Very good. Well, thank you all for your time and welcome. And we'll just hop right into our lively discussion today. Jose, starting with you, how do you perceive the current role of artificial intelligence in shaping the landscape of MBA and business education and its impacts on future career options?
Thank you for the question, which is definitely one of paramount importance. I see the impact of AI on MBA programs in a twofold way. First, on the what, and second, on the how. With the what, I mean the content that we teach. It is absolutely important that participants of MBAs, students of MBAs, understand what AI is about and understand it at a technical level. Even if everything that we do is about business, everything that we do is about societal impact, we have a technology in front of us that is far from easy. And if business leaders are going to use it in order to generate real value, they need to understand what is going on. That's the what, the technical component. And second, the how, how do we deliver our courses? How do we enhance the students of the MBAs to have a better learning experience? Let me give you an example there. We have used artificial intelligence tools in order to help the students to understand what is going on in the classroom and to interact with this kind of large language model at any time after the course. This is about the how we deliver, always trying to enhance the experience of the participants for them to better understand any content that we teach.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Go ahead and jump in.
I'd be happy to. I'd say the technical component is a tricky one. Right. So generally speaking, when I talk to MBAs coming in, I always ask them, is anybody here to learn how to program? And there's always one. For some reason, there's always one, but generally there's not a lot. And so the trade-off here is how much do they need to know about the technical details and how much do they need to know about its potential and how to apply it within the context of the different topics that they're learning about. And I'd say I would focus probably more on that piece. So how to integrate it into the classes that they already have and expand them as well, but particularly sort of how do I use it in all the different domains that they're being taught about within an MBA program.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else on that one want to hop in? Anything to add?
I'm very passionate about sorry, Angela, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to add one thing in regards to that future career prospects portion. So when we've met with a lot of people in industry, it's becoming very clear that everyone in this junior role or all of those first level careers, they're expected to know how to use AI to make them more AI enhanced, make them more productive in their first role. So we're no longer going to be doing months of onboarding. They're going to hit the ground running at the very beginning. And so it's our job as the educators to really introduce how to use these tools, how to leverage AI, so we can become that to that next level.
Yeah, that is a very good point about the onboarding. Balaji, you had something that you wanted to add.
No, I was just teaching one of the MBA AI classes yesterday, and I was introducing myself, and I said, I started doing, my journey started 30 years ago. My undergraduate thesis was on genetic algorithms, which was AI then.
Wow.
And a student said I wasn't even born then. But what I'm very passionate about, I have a background in both computer science and business, and I've been doing machine learning, AI research and teaching for I think almost 25 years now. And I very strongly believe that understanding capabilities is super important. And the thing that I fear the most today about AI is that people walk in assuming it's magic. And I tell them, look, there are two things. What's the difference between AI and Harry Potter? And it's like, Harry Potter is magic, AI is not. And second is, what's the difference between Harry Potter and Tom Cruise? Well, there's only one and only one Tom Cruise, but there are many AI, right? But when we talk about AI, people have this tendency to say the AI, which also makes no sense. And so when we put together, we have 6 courses at the Smith School now. And the idea is the capabilities, then design, applications, and governance, right? And I think all are important. And working with industry, I think one of the things we've seen is that businesses struggle a lot in making this work, right? The everyday person sees examples in in the big apps, right? And yes, there are trillion-dollar companies that can easily monetize AI, but then there are hundreds of thousands of companies who cannot easily monetize AI. It's hard work for them. And in the last 30 years, we've seen that when they've tried to do that, it's difficult to get return on investment. And I think that's where great MBA thinking comes in, right? To figure out how to make this work for the everyday business, and that is not easy. And I think the curriculum is sort of put together trying to make them understand it, but there are no magic recipes at the end of the day, right? You want magic, go and see Harry Potter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to steal that line, Balaji.
Absolutely.
And I
Mohammed,
think,
do you have anything to add?
yeah, I think just to add to, all the great things that have been said. So, right, AI, the way we see it is like, it's a general purpose technology. So it's not going to be just one industry, right? It's affecting all industries. It is creating value, and the value capture and the value sort of, how do you expand the value is going to be thought through in every industry. That means all your students across the board, whether they're marketing students, they're sort of MBA with strategy, or whatever their sort of niche going to be in application, they still have to understand this technology. And as Balaji said, and like earlier, Jose and Vincent were talking about, like, you really have to understand the capabilities. So that's what is important, right? So even as we think about as we talk about industries and as we talk to some of the larger employers for our programs, we look at, okay, well, think about change management, which is an OB class. But the OB class now, the change management, so like for MBT, the reason, so we actually got a degree rather than calling it Tech MBA, we call it MBT because, literally all MBAs are now moving to be technology MBAs. The change management class is an example. Well, what do you talk about? Well, you have to talk about the change that you have to manage within the firm as AI is being used, whether AI is replacing some jobs. Some people are worried that they're going to be replaced by AI. But it's the augmentation piece that's actually going to ultimately create the value. And that augmentation piece, how do you manage the change, needs to be even in the curriculum in a class like very much, like a traditional, very MBA class, right? Or if you think of a leadership class, right? So that's the, and as Balaji was saying, we have to now think about classes that are like not in typical MBA programs, like governance, right? And regulation. So like just case in point, the Apple case that's just happening, right? It's fascinating, right? So what does it mean to have an open market? What does it mean to have openness in the sort of the app store, right? So all of these things the students have to learn in the current product market. And the way we see it at Purdue is we're not talking about just technology sector as the sector that's affecting by AI, right? We talk about manufacturing, which is a big thing in Midwest. You talk about pharmaceuticals, you talk about agriculture, everybody's affected. So we have to really talk about every company today is a technology company. That's basically our sort of focus right now as the business school. And that's where we have to bring in those kind of content in the curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point. You can't work at a company anymore without knowing how to manage all this technology. So for our next question, I'm really excited to hear from each of you about kind of, the research also frontiers that AI is bringing. Can you tell me a little bit about, the latest faculty research around AI that is happening? And Vincent, let's start with you.
Sure. I'd say this is not going to be in one particular area. I think it's across all areas. So I thought Mohammed's point earlier about change management, how do we deal with the influx of generative AI and how people adopt it and use it? I think that's a huge one. I think there's a lot of research happening right now, not just at Rady, but I think across business schools and in economics departments and so on, thinking about what's the impact of this on productivity. So there's a really interesting study that BCG conducted recently, trying to figure out, so what's the impact? And the impacts are huge. The interesting part of that is that it's not just somebody that's specifically trained for this to just give access to generative AI and they become substantially more productive. So I think where it really is going to get interesting is in the area of how does this impact consumers and their decision-making processes, as well as how companies redesign their organizations around generative AI and then figure out what parts are generative AI and what parts are going to be the human in the loop. And so I think there's a ton of research in that space already happening. I'm doing a little bit of that myself as well. So I think there's a lot of area for research in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Balaji.
I'll make a very broad statement that business school researchers are super responsive to what's going on in the field. So I think if you look at any top school, you'll pretty much see every faculty member having an AI project they're working on, right? And this is true at Maryland. It's true, I'm pretty sure, at all my places. And COVID is a great example. When COVID came, you have no idea how many papers we all published, right? I think the entire field was looking at resilience and so on. And I'm just laughing a bit about it because I think now I don't see any more COVID papers, but I think the knowledge that was created during then is going to really help in lots of other things, coming ahead. And sometimes that's what researchers do, right? I mean, we look at problems in the real world and then we work on it. And so so many examples. I have colleagues who have this AI for Social Good initiative, and they have a third conference they're running in June. Lots of work in that space. Recently I've had a lot of work on AI design and how do you design AI systems, addressing hallucinations as well. And we've had, colleagues of ours in management looking at AI in hiring, and they got written up in the Wall Street Journal showing how where the AI jobs are being created. In marketing, we have a colleague that's working on the feeling economy and how AI is pushing people away from thinking into feeling, and that AI is doing all the thinking. Lots of very, very cool stuff, but I'm pretty sure all my colleagues have similar stories, right? And that's exciting. So I think all the MBAs, when they come into our classes, this is what I think they'll hear. And it's a fun time to be in this space.
Yeah. Mohammed, any kind of interesting research that you've heard about at Purdue?
Oh, absolutely. I think, like as Balaji was saying, all the business schools are always into it, right? So, I mean, going to Vincent's point, so a big part of this is really like thinking about how do you allow augmentation. I think that's the biggest part that we have to figure out, right? As this is a general purpose technology across the industry, how do we really do the augmentation? Because these models are, like Balaji was talking about 30 years ago where he started, right? So, I mean, I remember during my undergrad times, I was trying to work on AI, list programming, and all those computer science professors were the most miserable professors because nobody wanted to fund them. The computing power wasn't there, right? The data wasn't there. So today is totally different. But that also means that how do we really bring it to the regular people? So we have research going on right now where we're looking at, okay, taking these models, right? Large language models. You talk about tuning, you talk about data sizes, you talk about sort of model sizes, And how does that augmentation, how does that augmentation work? When you think about prompting, how does that change the augmentation and the value that comes out of it, right? Again, there's a lot of cost for this, right? Like Facebook and Microsoft, they can spend billions of dollars for all their A100s and the processing power, but then the other companies cannot, right? So you have to really think about the overall landscape. The other part, I think, that we're seeing at Purdue is this is opening a lot more tighter sort of relationship with engineering and computer science in the business school. So when you look at MBT, just program-wise, right? So the program design really brought in a lot of these other classes and concentrations from engineering and computer science. That happened because the research is also, the faculty members are very tightly sort of now working with the engineering faculty or computer science faculty. So it's not just methods they're generating, right? So these faculty members are also interested in thinking about economic value that comes out of it, right? And I think that's happening a lot here. And so like we have the Physical AI Institute that we just recently launched and got funded like $50 million from Lilly. So that's a university-wide initiative that's trying to bring in all sorts of angles, right? So like I'm actually on an NSF grant with some engineering colleagues. We're looking at musicians. How can you train them better where they don't get fatigued or they don't get sort of like, they can practice with a missing member, right? When the missing member is probably working for economic reasons, but then they have this hobby of doing music, right? So it came from engineering, but then the whole economic side, how to design all the experiments, that all came from the business school side, right? So I think this is really opening a lot of interesting frontiers. And at least, and I think this is happening in many other schools, this tightening bonds across universities is also a great outcome from this.
Absolutely. Angela, what's going on at American Kogod?
Yeah, so it's super exciting, but currently to date, we have 25% of our faculty already engaged in doing research with a nexus to AI. And the really exciting thing about all of this research is that we're looking in this multifaceted impact. So we're looking at AI across the societal, the economic, the health, technological, or even the organizational domains. And we're specifically looking at those like socioeconomic levers or how it's impacting our human experience. So a lot of really good stuff's in the works. One to highlight is that our accounting professor just recently published with the IBM Center for the Business of Government about how tax agencies actually can leverage AI tools to decrease risk and increase their efficiencies overall. So again, we're looking across the domains and it's really, really exciting work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jose, tell us about what's going on at IMD.
Thank you very much. Of course, I will give you 3 titles of 3 papers about AI that we have published recently. One by some colleagues titled "Moving Beyond Islands of Experimentations to AI Everywhere," building a little bit on what Mohammed said before about change management and how you have to transform the organization in order to enable it and ultimately enable its people to use AI everywhere. Another one that was published in the Harvard Business Review in November last year is about how to use generative AI to uncover new insights into your competitors. This is a project where we work with a multinational company for a couple of years. It was actually before the ChatGPT came out. So it was a large language model before large language models were actually the full kid in the block. And it's basically an article where we report how this company used a large language model to read public documents about its competitors, basically annual reports, press releases, and so forth and so on. And literally, reading between the lines, got some, let's call them secret moves about their competitors before the competitors actually made them, which ended up having massive financial impact for the organization. That's a bit about the economic value, the real value, right? Like use AI for something that matters other than just jumping into AI because it's the next cool hype. And then the third one, which was published again, Harvard Business Review in February, is about how companies can collaborate in order to collectively train AI with data that they don't necessarily own. It's an article full of examples about take a bank that trains an AI with data from an insurance company. And this enables the insurance company to monetize the data in a privacy-enhancing way. Yet enables the bank to use AI, or let's say an algorithm, right, to create value for itself. And I like speaking about this article because it's rather technical. So we speak about data. What is the impact of data in a model? Going back to what Vincent was saying before about how tricky it is to actually speak about the technical guts of the AI when you have an audience of people interested in business. What we have realized is that when you really spend a little bit of time going deep into the technical aspects of it, the level of understanding increases so much that many different dimensions of the AI emerge. The ethical one, the one that have to do with privacy, many philosophical questions about, am I going to be substituted, future of work, future of labor? And this enriches the conversation very much, ending up in a sort of a humanistic discussion about the future of society, the future of businesses, that starts with a very technical aspect, but that ends with a plethora of insights. And wow, being there as a professor is beyond exciting, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys all. That's very fascinating look into what each of your schools are doing. We're going to switch now to kind of maybe the bread and butter for what students want to talk about, and that's like the curriculum. Can you tell a little bit about, how AI topics or lessons are being integrated into the core, but also any really exciting electives that are being, kind of developed around it? And we actually have a really relevant, good question from our Q&A. Robert wants to know if, you could be kind of precise about what you mean by AI and how this will be introduced into the curriculum. On the one hand, you have the traditional machine learning, such as random forest and neural networks. On the other hand, there is this new generative AI models. So maybe, be a little precise on that question as well. And Balaji, let's start with you.
So I can, talk about what we've done here. So, as I'd mentioned, I think in the new AI specialization, we have 5 courses. We're going to have 6 starting in fall as well. And that was launched in spring for the full-time MBA students. So there's a course on AI foundations, which is the technical capabilities. There's a course on AI design that adds to it to say how you can design and build these solutions with more hands-on experience, prompt engineering, RAG, all of that. Then we have 3 courses on applications in social media, marketing, finance, and then 1 on governance, right? So now these things are set so that they span a lot of the different topics. And we make it a point in, say, the AI foundations to highlight that AI is not just generative AI, right? It's the entire space. And I think Andrew Ng had, recently given a talk, I believe at Stanford, where he had mentioned that in the real world, probably 90% of applications and value are still coming from what is being called predictive AI, right? Traditional machine learning and so on, where generative AI is still a very tiny part, but it looks like it has the largest growth potential, right? So we want students to be able to understand these and say AI is not just ChatGPT, it's much more than that. And it's been around for like 20, 30 years. And to think about the applications. And I think the set of courses are put together for them to understand that. But end of the day, there are some themes that we are working still. It's still a work in progress because some of these is new. But the themes that we are cutting across the courses are themes like return on investment, which is not technology for technology's sake, but business value. Then ethics, and how do you do this responsibly? Then this trade-off between short-term and long-term, right? Things that you do in the short term may impact the long-term and vice versa. And then, as Mohammed was saying, augmentation, right? Bringing the humans in the loop. And then the future of work itself. Like everything might change. How will it change? And what does this mean for what people should know? So these themes we're working to make sure cuts across all these courses, right? Some courses may do more of one theme than another, but collectively, that's, if you look at the themes and the courses, that's what we want students to walk out with.
Yeah, absolutely. Mohammed, tell us about kind of the curricular implications at Purdue.
Absolutely. So I think, at Purdue, so we are sort of thinking about this more in the business and technology space. first, right? And then within that, we have AI specialization within MBT. So the core classes would cover some of the basics that Balaji was talking about, right? So the core classes would do the one guy that wants to do programming from Vincent's sort of comment, right? So we have to kind of get them started on still learning some programming concept. Otherwise, they won't really even understand the basics of the machine learning, predictive models. Because ultimately, yes, they have to do business decision making. We're taking them there. They will take finance, they'll take accounting, they'll do all the cases within that context, but they still have to understand technology enough, I think, as Jose was saying earlier, so they don't go comment and sort of think about a product that's not going to be really technologically feasible, or push away from a business solution or a business sort of product that's actually technologically feasible, but they just think it's not, right? So I think that's where the balance is. So I think we're starting with that in the core. We have a product design class, right? Digital product design class, again, is sort of trying to bring that sort of flavor of basics, and then take the students to in the electives, we're taking them toward more of the classes around, okay, generative AI, right? That's sort of the hottest thing. If you think about the blockchain and then how that interaction with AI, right? So like those things, how can they work? And there, depending on the students, their interest and strength, they can go to computer science. So because we have actually computer science as our partner, or engineering, and take classes from there. We actually have robotics and automation management as a concentration. So you could go to our engineering school, really see what robotics and what kind of manufacturing, industrial engineering, what's going on, and really get that sort of basics with the business side. In the core, then we talk about the governance. I think that's a very important part. I don't think we talked about this in the past in technology or in the MBA curriculum, but now technology governance and regulation is actually part of our core, because we really think that's very important for students to understand how that would work, right? And then the other course that I think we are trying to build, and it's going to be a work in progress for a few years, is really emerging technologies and business models, because we are seeing this generative AI, right? So with the marketplace, there are a lot of new business models that are going to open up. If you look at sort of the basic blockchain architecture, and you mix that with this generative AI, all of a sudden you're taking a technology that still has limitations to the masses. I think this is what Balaji was saying earlier, right? Like people don't know exactly what is magic and what is not, but you are taking it to the masses, right? So the question is, how do you really think about emerging technologies, and what kind of sort of business model, futuristic business models that you could potentially think about? So that's also part of our core, actually. So and then we have change management, leaderships, those classes with AI in mind in the core. Again, the idea is we want our students to be fully trained in terms of how technology is going to transform, digital transformation is going to transform their organization, and be able to manage that workforce, right? If you're in HR, that's because you're in HR, you're not going to be away from any large language models. You might be doing some RAGs, you might be doing some prompt engineering, right? You are going to be bound to be subject to some kind of fine-tuned model in your organization. So, and then you are making hiring decisions. Ultimately, you own the decision as human, right? So I think that's what we really are students to understand at the end of the day. So I think the curriculum is going to be overall covering all of those concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, what about American Kogod?
Yeah, so Kogod, we are really, really taking AI seriously, and we're incorporating this into every single subject, which is a part of our core curriculum, and developing new electives that will be best suited for it. And in order to accomplish this goal, we're actually rolling out more than 20 new and updated courses for this upcoming fall 2024 semester. And in doing this, we kind of have branded our courses in two different buckets. The first bucket is going to be what we call our AI artisan courses. And these are our big conceptual classes. So these are going to be not technical classes, but we're going to be incorporating AI, the concepts surrounding it, as a big significant discussion point, or the theoretical foundations to teach students how to think about AI, how to think about it in business context, and how to think about it in the societal impacts that it's going to have. Courses like this would be things like our sustainability and technology course. It would be something like our negotiations course, where again, we're not talking about the technical aspects of AI at all. But for example, in this negotiations course, instead of needing to pair up with another person and give them a role to play, we can actually put a persona through the AI and use our own negotiating skills or see how different negotiation tactics play out in this scenario. The second bucket is going to be our AI Sage courses, and this is our practical, in practice courses. These are going to be the deep technical courses that are going to be immersions. It's going to be using AI in a very specific context with hands-on projects, labs, case studies even, where we're building significant tools of AI. We're not building the significant AI tools, but we're using the AI to build these solutions for our businesses in these real world applicable problems. And to kind of answer Robert's question, like the courses included here would be things like our text mining class, our predictive analytics class, where we're going to go into some of those more foundational models like the decision trees and things of that nature. But it's also including things like our advanced forensic accounting, and a new elective, which will be with our BAE program with our AI and entertainment, and see how the entertainment world is really leveraging these AI advancements. So exciting things on the horizon.
Absolutely. Very exciting. Jose, how about at IMD?
Yes, thank you very much. Again, like Angela just did, trying to answer Robert's question very directly. We start with a crash course on artificial intelligence during the first week in January in our program. And there, trust me, we are very, very detailed in what it comes to explaining what AI is. We speak about transformers and what is special about transformers, the way in which the weights are calculated. So it's really, again, in line with what I've been saying, very, very technical in a sense, naturally not forgetting all the other lenses about it. But there is something that I think IMD takes a lot of pride in, which is that we have innovated a lot ourselves in developing artificial intelligence tools. There's a team here at IMD that I very much admire that already in spring last year started developing its own large language model to assist the participants in our programs, naturally including the students in the MBA. And this system contains all the slides that are taught in every course, contains all the articles that we have written, the ones that are published, but also internal documents, assessments, brainstorming notes, basically the latest status when it comes to knowledge. And this tool, which naturally we also explain in our program, is given to the participants that use it throughout the whole program, throughout the whole MBA, to have an enhanced learning experience. Now, since the space evolves so quickly, it is super interesting as a learning experience to be working with a tool that has been developed by the business school where you are studying, because you get to see what works fantastically well and where there is something that suddenly becomes slightly obsolete. And you see how in a matter of days it is resolved, which in turn results in an increased learning experience at the user level, meaning at the level of the value, like how do we solve the problem, how do we enhance our clients, the students in a way, but also at the technical level, like what was going on. There's really a dialogue between the experts, and I'm really proud. I really admire the team of developers here at IMD, because what they are doing is at the frontier of the applications in AI, and they're super transparent. We're a relatively small business school, and the dialogue is constant. And I have seen the students appreciating that a lot, because they get to see in practice what we preach in the classroom. So it's really all about the real world and doing something that matters for the students in this case, and something that they can afterwards transfer to the real world if they go to an area where AI is something meaningful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vincent, tell us a little bit about, the curriculum at the Rady school. And also we got an interesting follow-up question, with the pace of the AI development, how can you possibly keep your courses up to date? Vincent, please.
A very interesting question. So first of all, I'd like to sort of state my favorite quote. It's not mine. AI will not replace you. A person using AI will. Now, 5 years down the line, who knows, right? But in the next few years, I think the AI assisted MBA, sort of what we're thinking about. The quote that is mine is generative AI is a skill multiplier. If you have no skills, you're multiplying by 0. So let's not forget that they're actually there to learn about business first, and AI is an augmentation to that, right? So they can make AI assisted decisions. They can sort of understand how it complements their work, but they're not there to become AI data scientists, right? So we also have an MSBA program, but for the MBA in particular, I think integrating it into our classes directly and seeing how does it impact finance, how does it impact accounting, how does it impact leadership, change management, as Mohammed mentioned earlier, I think is another great example. So it's basically has an impact everywhere, and keeping your courses up to date. I'd say a very interesting class that we have is on business model and business model disruption. And so I'd say there you could see a direct impact on how it would influence business strategies. But other than that, I think it should come up in every single course, including the core, including our Rady action projects, which are company-based projects. Sort of, they're all struggling with what do we do with generative AI, and having the students work hands-on directly with them to try to see how do we implement it. Because as Balaji said, it's not Harry Potter. And I think that's a bit of the unfortunate state that I think a lot of companies are in. It's like, if we just figure out how to do the magic, then we'll be fine, right? Everything will sort of work. And so bringing them back down to earth and saying, let's start with a small win. Let's figure out a problem that we can address and support with generative AI. I think that's going to be a great learning experience for our students.
Yeah, thank you. Mohammed, we'll go to you next, but I do want to, kind of make sure we're getting the career trajectories discussion in here. And we have a great follow-up question about from one of our viewers about AI and recruiting. So, can you kind of talk about how you foresee AI shaping the landscape career-wise for MBA graduates, any particular industries or roles that stand to be significantly influenced, and how can MBAs kind of use their AI knowledge to stand out in a tight labor market? Mohammed, please.
Well, so I think, first of all, I think it's a great question, right? So if you think about MBAs, we're going to have MBAs generating, in the past, you were mostly doing MBA to manage a large number of people or teams, right? And different resources within the firm and the value chain, and then create value, right? I think in the current world, you just have to add to that a significant amount of technology that's enabled by AI, right? So, and then try to really see how you can be more efficient in doing your value creation and value capture. And I don't think this is just any industry. As I was saying earlier, I believe this is general purpose technology that's going to affect all industries. So regardless of the industry you're in, whether you want to be doing finance, if you're just passionate about finance and you got an MBA to do finance degree, you don't know how all of a sudden you don't have to change your trajectory and say, you know what, oh God, now I have to go into a different industry like technology industry to do that. No, that's not true. Look at the banks. Look at JP Morgan Chase, look at, like Goldman Sachs. I mean, they're all managing significant amount of technology products within the banks. And this product management, right? So whether you're a product manager, product owner, and then as you climb up, this is going to be true across the industries. And I think that's where we see the value of students really learning how to think about any sort of business problems, and then bring technology in there to solve that business problem, right? And then manage that product. And AI is just sort of like the capability in there, right? I don't think we can forget about the fundamentals of economics, right? So the basic economics class, even within MBT, we have the first class you take is the micro class. So you actually understand the demand and the supply curve and understand, okay, how that might change with the technological capabilities, with the cost changing, right? But that fundamental economics is very important for us to understand. So I'm not totally sure that we have to think about any particular role or think about changing so if you want to be in marketing, you love marketing, you could be in marketing, right? You can now generate many ad impressions, or even if you think of creative marketing, you have now AI just enabling you to do more. But at the same time, I think we're still working on a lot of research. We don't know the answers in terms of, okay, the differentiation is going to be also interesting, right? So AI brings everybody probably to some sort of mean, right? So you're regressing to the mean in terms of capability. Now differentiation is going to be an interesting problem. That's, again, human is going to play the role to do the differentiation, right? So I think this is where I see that. And just to add to that, and it goes back to one of the questions earlier, like how do we keep our curriculum up to date when you're in this role? And but also it's the same thing for MBAs who are getting jobs. How do I keep my skills up to date? So while I think the basic skills are going to be the same, for us, at least, we think you cannot change curriculum on the fly. That's just not possible, right? But what we can do is fundamentals are going to be still the same. The examples are going to be probably changing somewhat. But if there are experiential projects, which is a requirement at Purdue, right, in our program in MBT, and I think Vincent was talking about this earlier at Rady, we also are doing a technology landscape speaker series where we're going to bring in all the technologists to talk about what's going on in the field right now. That's the way we can keep the students up to date about what's happening, and they can connect that with curriculum and also see how their career might progress within the field. So this technology landscape series speakers that we're thinking about is not just your large sort of technology company like Apple, Google, Facebook, right? It's actually, again, every company. You think about Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company, but essentially it's also a technology company, right? So I think that's what our students will have to understand, and that's what we're going to probably focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, do you have anything to add to the, kind of the curriculum, or I mean, the career trajectory kind of aspects of AI?
Yeah, I think what Mohammed said was great, and I agree with him in the sense that, it's not going to impact one industry in particular or one role in particular. It's going to be multifaceted. Any industry, any career, we're going to be seeing AI kind of pop up. The one thing that I do think I'd like to add on is I do see the scope of some of our roles starting to change, especially for that like junior portion of the role. There's already AIs out there where, for example, in investment banking, there's a AI out there called Hebia that will, it's super impressive, and it kind of does what you would have done as a first-year analyst at an investment banking. Now, I don't think that that's going to completely replace all of our people, right? Like that's not going to be the replacement. It's not going to get rid of that role. But I do think what we end up doing as that first-year analyst, or as us managing a whole bunch of first-year analysts, our productivity is going to go up, and the scope of that role is going to have to change just a little bit. So that's definitely something that we, as like our MBA program students, are going to have to kind of consider, is like, how do we now manage people who are managing our AI tools, right? Or how are we critically thinking about what the AI is giving us to see what our decision is based off of that? So
yeah, absolutely. Anybody else have any kind of discussion that they want to add to career directories and how it's being used in recruiting?
Sure, just briefly, and trying to not repeat everything that was said here, and with which I naturally agree. AI is ultimately about insights in many applications. Of course, in other applications, it may be slightly different, but it's about which insights do we generate that our competitor doesn't have. These are the true, meaningful, value-adding business applications that we are seeing with AI. This can also be applied to the candidate that is searching for a position. Which insights can I get, or which insights can I add to this company if the company hires me, rather than someone that eventually may not be so fluent in data literacy, data analytics, AI, etc. As Vincent said, right? Someone using AI will replace you. Let's be that someone using AI. One thing that I teach in one of my electives is a tool that I very much like called Julius, Julius.ai. It's a sort of GPT-like layer on top of Python. So you don't need to understand Python coding, but you can upload some data and start having the data analyzed, have some models run on it, and with a relatively small technical knowledge, get actual insights from that data. This is a tool that anyone passing that elective can actually use in the real world, being a lawyer, a medical doctor, a philosopher, a writer, an M&A expert. And this is what will give you the day-to-day routinary extra inch that will make your work better and actually make the difference. So that would be my take. Search for these mini tools that will give you the insight. And AI is really democratizing the whole data science world, which is what AI is actually about, right? We call it AI. It's data science.
That's great.
Just don't tell them. So
Can I add one comment? So I think Angela's point was really good about sort of the entry level activities that somebody might do, let's say in finance, and that a lot of those can be handled by generative AI. I think the general rule within our classes in MBA and across the programs will be to raise expectations. So basically, we are tasked with creating the 2x MBA, the 2x Master of Science in Business Analytics student, and so on, because the expectations are just going to be that much harder in terms of productivity and ability from day one. So you know, the onboarding for 4 months is not going to be possible. You're going to have to be able to create value from day one, and I think that's a challenge for the students, obviously, but also for the instructors to figure out how do we continue to push our students so that they can't just copy and paste from generative AI, but how do we enhance our level of expectations to meet them where they are?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, anybody else?
Yes, sorry. A lot of the co-panelists have talked very well about jobs in AI. I wanted to address a slightly different thing, which I thought one of the questioners were asking, which was the use of AI in hiring. Now, I think, probably if you look at how many things haven't changed in 25 years, it's probably 2 things, right? Resumes and Google's homepage, right? So these things have looked more or less the same for 25 years, and that is going to change, right? Recently, there was news that I believe it was Duke that said they're going to stop assigning scores to essays because a lot of these essays are now AI generated, right? And now people can create resumes very well using these tools. So I think the way talent is assessed is going to change very, very soon and rapidly. A static resume is one of the least useful things that one can think of in today's environment, but that's what people are still using. But I see that changing very, very quickly. Companies are also doing a lot of short video interviews, tests, assessments, and combining all of that in order to make decisions, filtering decisions. So I think the MBA applicants need to have their, to pay attention to that and not just focus on preparing a good-looking static resume that says very little about who you really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our time has just flown by. Such a great, informative, lively discussion. I'd like to end with a great quote we got from one of our viewers, Mark, regarding magic and technology. And he is reminded of the quote by Isaac Asimov, who once said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." So it's probably a blessing and a curse with AI. Thank you all for joining us. And please, if you're viewing and have specific questions from any of the schools we heard from today, please reach out to them. They'd be more than happy to answer. And of course, you can find other interviews like this about a myriad of business topics on the Poets and Quants YouTube page. Thank you to our panelists for your time and expertise. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a great rest of your day.